Hey, good morning, Saints fans and Hoodats from all over the world. This is Kyle T. Mosley here with the Bayou Blitz, and I got the host of the most, Mr. Bob Rose. What's happening, Bob?
Morning, Kyle. Happy Sunday to you, your family, and everybody that's tuning in out there. We appreciate you taking some time out of your Sunday morning to join us. I'm hanging in there fair and square so far. What about yourself?
Doing well, buddy. Doing well. You know, just trying to stay safe, trying to stay sane, just trying to stay relevant right now, to be honest with you. And guys, just make sure that you and your families are staying safe with everything that's going on with the COVID-19, especially with the George Floyd situation. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. We also will talk about what's developing with Clowney, if there's interest with the Saints or not. We don't know. We shall see. And also talk a little bit more about some Saints and Saints news. But today we have a special guest with us today. We have, let's put it this way. If you ever was interested in trying to understand how Alvin Kamara maintained his balance and how he was able to escape those defensive tackles and linebackers and get hit and still stay up and keep on running and scoring touchdowns, let's bring in the man who helps him out with his balance, his stability, as well as his strength. We have Dr. REEF in the house. What's going on, Dr. REEF? This is Dr. Sharif Tabbah of the Athletics, Rehab, and Recovery Center in Miami, Florida. How you doing this morning?
Great. Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. Well, look, we are so happy you are able to join us this morning. You know, I was telling Bob a little bit about you, but tell our audience a little bit more about who you are and about the Athletics, Rehab, and Recovery Center.
Sure. Thanks so much. So I'm a doctor of physical therapy, also a strength and conditioning specialist. I'm also one of the co-founders of Athletics, Rehab, and Recovery here in Miami, Florida. We also have a location in the Fort Lauderdale area. We specialize really in blending physical therapy, injury recovery, as well as injury prevention, blended with performance. So what really makes us special is we try to get an idea of what does this athlete really need to get back to doing, and how do we make sure that we progress them there gradually and appropriately.
Awesome. Well, look, you have worked with some really good athletes that are of interest to the Houdat Nation, of course. Number one being Alvin Kamara, as well as Kiko Alonso, linebacker, as well as former Saint Mark Ingram. Tell us, how were you able to get connected with those guys?
Sure. I really started working with Alvin about, I guess, 2017 during draft prep process. He came and was part of our program that we were doing at the time. And we really just connected, and his energy and my energy really connected quickly. And he really liked being challenged. I liked finding new ways to challenge him, and kind of from there, just the relationship developed and evolved. As he's had so much success, you know, for many reasons, but also really just enjoyed the work that we've done together. He's really referred us a lot of other people, which has helped get to guys like Mark, for example.
Yeah, well, it looks like you have quite a slew of NFL guys right now working at your facility. How large is the facility, and what else are you offering to those guys, especially the NFL guys, this off season?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple of different facilities. Each one is inside of bigger facilities. So we're inside of gyms that allow us to have a lot more space, which is nice. So our primary facility, where we see most of our NFL athletes, it's part of like an 80,000 square foot facility, and we have 2 turf fields, and we have 2 gyms and a pool. So we're able to kind of blend everything from, you know, strength and conditioning to injury prevention to actually injury recovery, even into performance. We partner alongside of other performance companies to help us get things from more advanced skill work with ex-NFL players to anything and everything from weight room, traditional weight room and speed work, to some of the more unique stuff that you see us doing a lot with the balance and multi-system stresses.
Awesome. Look, man, some of those workouts, I was telling Bob back in the day, I was doing those before you even tried them.
I thought you looked familiar.
But it was more falling down a lot, though, you know. But tell us the creativity in some of your workouts. I was on your website. I looked at several of the videos that you guys have produced.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with some of the workouts? Let's go and talk a little bit for Alvin. What was it about him and some of his needs that you created some of these workouts, or stressed some of the workouts that you have developed?
Okay, yeah, definitely. So basically, as in with any athlete, it's very important that you're looking at ways that you can stress the body and challenge the body, but also make sure that you're thinking about what is the past injury history we have to consider, what are things that have maybe led to some of those injuries that we need to address, any imbalances in the body, and then how do we make sure that we're doing injury prevention as well as injury recovery, and of course improving performance in the process. So I mean, everything begins, the way our process begins with like a total body assessment, and we look for any type of imbalance, any injury history, any imbalance right versus left that we need to address to kind of realign the athlete. The biggest thing we always say is these pro athletes are at such an elite level already that to try to make them significantly stronger, significantly faster, you're playing with small pieces of the puzzle, small percentages that you can change. But if we can take that athlete and bring them back to neutral and their perfect alignment and their optimal health and performance, it's just going to allow them to be them at 100%. And very rarely are these athletes able to be them at 100%. So that's what we really try to focus on in that off season, is trying to get everybody back to feeling like themselves, even healthy. And then from there, try to continue to challenge them at new levels. So to answer your question a little bit about how did some of these exercises come about and get developed, it's really just like a natural progression from where we started. So, I mean, with Alvin, we started like we start anybody, single leg balance work on the floor. And then kind of from there onto like a foam pad, and there onto a half Bosu ball. And then as he would quickly master all these challenges, it just became like, okay, how do we make this harder? How do we take this to the next level? All right, well, let's kneel on a ball. Okay, well, that became too easy. Let's kneel on a ball and add, hand-eye coordination that has to make him turn his head and think about a different task. Okay, that became too easy. So then you saw all the craziness of him standing on a ball doing hand-eye coordination. I mean, all of this was like a progression to find ways to challenge not just his balance or his strength, but also multi-system, challenge his cognition. How can we throw in multiple levels of, okay, there's a strength component, a balance component, there's a hand-eye component, a cognitive component, so maybe an auditory component. So we try to simulate the multi-system stress that these athletes will experience on the field. Of course, nothing's going to prepare an athlete for football like football, but to be able to prepare his cognition for all these types of challenges and to make some of the balance and reaction and hand-eye coordination stuff come secondary, because his primary cognition is thinking about all these other tasks and challenges and reads, it's only going to make it that much easier and that much more second nature. Okay,
well, awesome. So everybody became more familiar with you when Alvin was standing on the ball and you were talking about the hand-eye coordination, and you were throwing the, the 3 prongs to him, and he would have to catch in the color you named, right?
Right.
And I was thinking, man, that's a lot of the thought process, especially for an old man like myself. But for a young man like Alvin, that shows what in his development as a player and athlete.
So you're asking me what it shows, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it shows his ability to, the main reason we do a lot of this training is we're looking for body awareness. I'm trying to also improve body awareness in different planes of space. So it's nice and easy to train and to work out and to accomplish tasks in a stable, controlled environment. But in football or any sport, it's so dynamic. You're moving, you're getting knocked off your course, you're evading a tackle, someone's got your leg, and then you spin, you got to go this way. So very rarely are we on this nice, beautiful, even field or flat playing surface. So it's important for him to learn how to overcome these unexpected stresses and learn how to recruit stabilization muscles through the core, the hips, the ankles, all these kinds of things to create stability in such an unstable environment, so that now when he is running the ball down the field, gets bumped off track, gets spun around, he's easily able to maintain his body awareness, his center of mass, and kind of gather himself and keep going in the direction he needs to go.
Yeah. There was one I guess, regimen that you have. He's had the bar and the weights are free flowing, right?
Right.
Let's see, I don't know if I can bring that one in. This one. Do you see it?
Yep, I can see it.
What is that? Tell us about that one.
For sure. We knew that one was going to be a little controversial, but so our goal there was it's not a leg strength per se. It's more about, again, core coordination, strength, being able to overcome external moments, external forces that are pushing him in different directions, kind of simulating, again, bouncing off of tackles, and having to take external forces, saying, okay, I'm going this way, but I'm getting knocked this way. And how do I keep my core strong to be able to keep going straight, and get used to that stop and go when, even though I'm running full speed, now I have to plant, all my momentum's going this way, and maybe I'm getting hit in that direction, but I need to now come back this way. So the more I can prepare his body for overcoming those type of external forces, the more prepared he'll be to take them on the field.
Yeah, I saw that he noted on the post, it kind of felt, he said this is one of the workouts that felt more like being in the NFL, getting hit by players and trying to keep his balance and things of that nature.
Yeah, he was really saying, this really feels like simulating running the ball because of that constant change of direction, overcoming a force and stop and go and stop and go. So that's also preparing those ankles, those hips, those different joints that have to be able to withstand those multi-direction forces that might be unpredictable. So that's what was nice about that. And of course, you can imagine that in order to create stability from the trunk up to be able to stay stable up top, you're using a lot of that core stabilization rather than letting it be kind of loose. So if we can teach this, now you get rid of that, and now you're running and you're bumping into people, but you're used to having to be that tight, people are going to be flying off of you like pinballs.
And that is true. We see that every season now with Alvin. How long have you been working with him? Has it just been 2 years? Has it been 3 years?
I guess this is, I think, our 4th year since his draft prep. So 2017, prior to the season. So whenever that was, so about 4 years.
Awesome. Bob,
Go ahead, Dr. Reef, do you work with the players during the season too, or does that more fall into each player's individual teams?
It depends on my relationship with the player, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do a decent amount of traveling for guys during the year, depending on who needs me where and who wants to bring me up and stuff like that. But absolutely, and I'm in touch with as many of my guys as I can be during the season, just to check in and make sure everyone's doing well, feeling well, seeing if they need anything. Maybe just my ankle's bothering. Can you shoot me a couple of those exercises we do, and I'll just shoot a couple over quick. To as much as, hey, can you come out here for a week? Or I even had some guys on the Browns that I was out there twice a month last season. So it really just depends on what the guys need. I'm always there to try to help out. So.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I asked. As most people know, Alvin Kamara suffered knee and ankle injuries last year that really affected him during the course of the year. So how did you work with him, differently? It's obviously different when you're trying to rehab and work through an injury during the course of a season rather than after the season, where you can bring somebody along a little bit more slowly. So can you tell our audience what the different processes are? What did you do to help keep Alvin in one piece during the season? And then, how did you move into the normal workouts once the off season started?
Absolutely. So the big thing, I think, with during the season with Alvin this year, he sent me some videos of how he was coming along. They kept him up there for the most part for the rehab. So he was talking about coming down during a bye week and whatnot. It kind of didn't end up working out, but I did what I could from a distance in terms of sending some recommended exercises, or just kind of looking at some of the videos of him returning to run and just kind of being there for him from a conversation standpoint as well, to just talk through the process of, hey, should I rush back? Should I take my time? What do you think? How do I know if I'm ready? Those kinds of conversations, to just be there for support as well. If I couldn't be there hands-on, there was it was actually just a crazy season this year. I was doing a lot of traveling for guys, and a couple of times we did try to get me there. I already had prior engagements, so it was a tough situation this year. But come the off season, it was nice that we got to really take our time and focus on spending that first month of just getting him back right and taking our time going through. All right, we know you had a rough year with injuries. We know there's going to be some compensation patterns up the chain that just feel natural to you at this point because you were compensating for these injuries the second half of the year. So how do we go back, correct those issues, break those bad habits, and start to return you to the normal you? So, it definitely was a challenge this year. but just like everything he overcame and looks amazing right now. I mean, just having to break out different drills to say, okay, let's focus on, the responsiveness of one leg versus the other leg, and then do a lot of individual ISO exercises for strength, for power, with single leg versus double, to make sure we're not allowing the stronger leg to compensate for the injury leg and things like that. So it's added an extra layer of challenge, which is fun for everybody, because he likes to be challenged. And honestly, how quickly he overcomes things forces me to be challenged to come up with new ways to challenge him. So we kind of push each other in that way, and it makes it really enjoyable. I think we've come up with some pretty crazy stuff this year that is always functional and always designed to help him on the field, but also to make sure that he's engaged and challenged, because just like a lot of these elite athletes, if he's not being challenged, he's will lose engagement pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it looked like you do a lot to engage those guys. Not only are you working with Alvin, you're working with Kiko Alonso. I don't want to talk about his injury, but I want to talk about what type of regimens are you helping him with? Is it more stability right now because he's coming off that significant injury, or strengthening, or both?
Yeah, so Kiko and I were working together a bit when he was over on the Dolphins, kind of maintenance stuff like that. Then when he had the injury, he called me, I think a week after the injury, and talked about coming back down so we can get to work. He did. We started some work a little bit post-operatively, just kind of the basic stuff that's necessary coming off of the ACL. But then he typically lives out in California in the offseason, so he made his way back out there. And then he told me he's going to be probably back here in the summer. COVID's made things a little bit of a challenge, but we are anticipating hopefully seeing him again soon and getting through those important late stage phases of the rehab process.
Now, I was going to ask you, you mentioned the COVID challenge. What have you and the athletes and people that you work with, how have you approached your regiments differently during the lockdowns? And now that we're starting to come out, are you going to continue that kind of practice, or are you going to shoot for business as normal?
Absolutely. I'm happy to say, everything's opened back up now. So that's really good. So we're back in the facility the last few weeks. It's really making things a lot better. But we did have to get creative, and of course it was very important that first and foremost, we kept everybody safe, and we followed all guidelines. That was extremely important, because the last thing we want to do is put any of our clients or athletes at risk, or staff for that matter. But of course, these athletes couldn't afford to sit around and just do nothing for 3 months. That's not an option. So how do we do this and follow the rules, and also be safe and get them what they need? And it turned into a lot of in-homes, going to homes with the guys that wanted to get the work done, and making it happen from there. So we were able to get some good setups with Airbnbs and things like that in the area, because most of these guys don't live here full time. So we found some good spots with a lot of outdoor space, so we can do some movement, we can do some exercise, and we just brought a bunch of stuff from the facility and kind of set up and made it work. So you really see the people who are resilient and the guys who are resilient trying to find a way to make it work and put in good hours and good efforts for weeks and weeks. I mean, we stacked a couple of crazy months, and I wouldn't really say any of it's been light work. So it's definitely it'll pay off for these guys, and I hope that everybody's doing it. But you got to wonder, is everybody in the league doing it? I don't know. Yeah, that's been one question that I had. I took a little bit about Alvin. We had some other guys like Jameis Winston. He has posted a lot of his workouts. Malcolm Jenkins is working out. So you got a lot of guys who are posting their workouts, but you got a guy like Michael Thomas who's not posting his workout, but he said he's going to come back like a monster, right? But when I look at Alvin's workout, I've got to say I am highly eager to see what he's going to do on the field, man. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. Tell me, like, for an old guy like myself or Bob, how do you work with us non-athletes, or do you work with non-athletes? Absolutely, we do. I mean, everything is really about levels and is about progression. So we could utilize, first of all, what's the function we're trying to address? Is it sheerly pain? Is it sheerly an injury? Is it maybe return to hooping on the weekends? I mean, it really depends on what your goals are, and then we design things really specific to that. But of course, we utilize the same general concept of making sure we're creating body awareness, making sure we're establishing an even body, right versus left. We're looking at getting that homeostasis restored. Things like that, to then focus on how do we get you back to the specific function that you want. And each of you might have different functions. So therefore, what I do with one of you versus the other might be completely different, even if you had the exact same injury. So it really just depends.
And I see that you guys are offering Zoom training or Zoom consultations as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So we've been doing a lot of that with both our athlete population as well as some of our general population. It's really, even as things have now opened back up, it's really a matter of what is everyone's comfort level, because not everyone's going to feel the same with what's comfortable and what feels right in these times. No one knows when we're going to go back to our old normal. This might just be our new normal. So we still, even though we're back in the facilities now, we still have some patients that choose to stick to the video calls, and that's not a problem. We still have some that prefer the in-home, so we're still doing some in-homes. It really depends. We just try to be resilient and find a way to continue to serve and help our patients in whatever way that we can, despite whatever the challenges are.
Okay. Before you go, I'd like you to kind of go through a couple of these workouts and kind of explain them for some of our audience.
For sure.
What is this one here with Alvin?
Sure. So you can see he's got the bungee over just his left shoulder while we're stepping up with that right leg. So the point here is, rather than just a simple step up, this is like a counter rotation step up, if you will. So as he steps up, the force is pulling his shoulder back. So he's got to use his core for that anti-rotation to remain forward while stepping up. So of course, the step up, he could put that same resistance around his waist, and we'll get the strength to the glutes and the quads and the whole lower leg and a little bit of trunk stability at the top. But now that we put it over the shoulder, we're still getting all that same stress through the lower extremities, but we added a lot more anti-rotation stress to the trunk. So again, I'm considering, as he's running the ball and he's not taking contact square in the chest, he's taking it, one shoulder or the other shoulder or the hip. So it's always that unilateral stress that we have to overcome. So how can we make sure that no matter where the stress is coming from, one side, the other side, high, low, lateral, anterior, he learns how to maintain that core control to continue going where he wants to go.
Wow. Awesome. What about this one here with the medicine ball?
Yeah. So this one we're working on overloaded lateral bounds. So what that really works on is explosiveness. So as the first jump, he's jumping on a 45-degree angle. And as he lands, we're doing the medicine ball slam. So that right there, boom, he's overloading that eccentric force, which is that like accepting of his weight with the weight medicine ball. So he's got his whole body weight plus the weight of the ball. And as he's slamming the ball, it's bringing the momentum. So now we're totally overloading that glute, the leg, the core, and then he has to explode out of that. So now when he's on the field and now he makes a move and he, cuts at 45 and then wants to give like a dead leg and come back, he doesn't have the extra ball. He just has body weight. Of course, his momentum of him running, full speed and whatnot, so that changes things. But now it becomes that much easier. It's kind of like an overload principle. If I can bench press more than my body weight all the time, then when I go and I have to push someone that weighs less than that, it's that much easier. Same kind of concept. If I run with overspeed, now when I take that away, I'm more comfortable running fast. Things like that.
Awesome. What about, we went through this one. This is the one I really like, this one here. I see the resistance band around him as well.
Yeah. So this one, for example, it is actually around his waist. So that one we're just working on, typical footwork drills, ladder drills, which is kind of a great example we talked about earlier of, he had some injuries earlier in the year and we need to make sure both legs are equally responsive. So we're in that particular drill, just his left leg is having to be a fast twitch in and out of the box. And of course we did the other side, did right leg, but we want to see an even amount of speed and poppiness on right versus left, because after an injury, sometimes, a person might say, okay, I feel 100% because the pain's gone and they can do most of the strength stuff. But then the last thing to come is that explosiveness and that responsiveness. So we really want to work on that. Now rather than just doing it, in a ladder with no resistance, which of course was the first step, this is now adding a resistance around his waist. So he's got to drive that much harder. He's got to, we're going to increase the ground reaction force. And then he has to overcome and drive out of there with a bunch of resistance. So again, simulating contact or just pushing more than his body weight, dragging a defender, running through a defender, whatever it might be. We also did those drills the resistance over the shoulder. So again, kind of simulating what we did on the step up. Now we're doing ladder drills with footwork and movement, but it's all an anti-rotation resistance as well.
Awesome.
Progression. Yep.
Okay. What is that about?
So,
tag there with the cubes.
Sure. So in that one, we have Alvin in a kind of a push-up position with his feet on a Swiss ball. So now his lower trunk is on a very unstable surface. Maintaining that position already can be a challenge. And then from there, having to weight shift onto one hand to lift a hand. So we'll start with that position and maybe do like a shoulder tap and just getting used to having a weight shift over, weight bear through one arm, lift the other arm up. Now you're in a 3-point position and having the core and anti-rotation and stability strength and coordination to be able to pull that off. Now, because of course that was too easy, we added these little lights that are reaction lights. And the first level is just putting them at one color. And as he's there, he has to go ahead and hit the lights and turn off the light as it comes on, which makes him work on hand-eye coordination with that combined core work, stability, shoulder stabilization, all of that. Now, of course, that becomes too easy. So the one in that video, we actually have different colors going to which we assigned tasks. So I don't remember exactly which one it was for that video, but let's say it was right hand red, left hand blue, and a green double tap. So now he's in that position. He's got to maintain the stability. He's got to read the light, process, okay, what task am I supposed to do it, and then do it in real time and maintain the stability and balance. So there's a lot going on there. But it's, again, a perfect example of those multi-system stresses that we try to put together and be able to challenge him to think about a new task while making that core stabilization become second nature. Yeah.
What's incredible for me is the fact you said it got too easy. Explain how, if it's too easy for Alvin, what are you doing to keep challenging him?
It's a perfect example of how he continues to challenge me to come up with new ways to get creative and find new ways to challenge him. He just so quickly manages to overcome any challenge. So it's just understanding the progressions and how do we either challenge the stability or challenge the resistance or challenge the cognition or challenge the vision or the coordination. I mean, you got to just look at all the many variables that you can play with and just find a way to take your time and adjust the variables accordingly. This time of year, we're doing so much work and so much creativity. Now he's really in the flow, and as are many of the guys we work with. And I always, laugh and tell them, I can't stop thinking about new ways to challenge you guys, because as I sit back and reflect on everything we did today, I'm thinking about how we're going to progress that tomorrow. So it makes it fun. And then as ideas pop up, I kind of write things down and have an ongoing list, and we just find new ways to incorporate it as we go.
Right. I guess what I'm putting out here, is this his old workout regimen? Have you guys modified that since?
It varies. That's the same kind of a general concept of what we're looking to do. Typically this year it's been a little bit more of like 2 upper lower focus days, an upper day, lower day, twice each. And then kind of in the middle of the week, we've been doing a lot of pool work on Wednesdays. So it's been a lot of different explosion drills, and we use a lot of different tools in the pool to work on power, stability, cardio, but also like an active recovery. I've even taken some of the guys and just made them tread water for time, which really? I've gotten a lot of resistance to, but we've been getting there. We've gotten the guys up to 10 minutes straight, stuff like that, where we're just keeping the cardio going, and it's a mental challenge, it's a cardiovascular challenge. It's just building that mental toughness. I get in there with them and show them how it's done when I can, but it makes it fun and it makes it a challenge. And what I've learned, what really fuels these guys too, is if I can get out there and show them that I can do it, they're that much more frustrated and eager to say, well, if you can do it, I can do it. So I got to make sure I can do at least a couple of reps.
Yeah. See, I be trying to do that with Bob and the guys, man. They just don't want to still listen to me though, Dr. Reef.
Hey, just a little bit of good old competition really motivates everybody. So
yeah. I say if an old guy like me can do it, you guys can get out here and do this now. Come on.
Exactly. We got to lead by example out here.
Exactly, man. Well, look, tell us a little bit about where you guys are right now. Are you guys expanding your operation, and what's next to expect from athletics, rehab, and recovery?
Yeah, so, of course, COVID led to a whole new challenge. I mean, right before this, we were about to pop into 2 new facilities. We were extremely excited. So, things have kind of shifted now, and we need to focus on, regathering and making sure we're where we want to be, and then figuring out, okay, what's our next step? Is it immediate growth into new facilities? Do we want to maybe revamp some of the facilities we currently have? Maybe go into a bigger facility. I mean, there's so many different things that we now need to reconsider. But the biggest challenge right now is this is prime time. This is NFL offseason. So first things first is focus on our guys, get them back right, get them healthy, get them ready. So hopefully come August, we're able to focus a little bit more on the next steps for the business.
Awesome, man. Bob, any last questions for Doc?
Hey, no, I mean, Dr. Reef, you've been, very, very impressive in some of your workout regimens. We definitely appreciate the time you've taken. We'd love to have you back on the show. Is this, when you first started out your practice and your business, is this about what you had envisioned, or has it expanded even beyond that? This was certainly the goal from the beginning. I knew the population I enjoyed working with. I knew that's where I wanted to take this. My diligence, I really think is a huge part of what led us to this point. My partner, Kyle, is amazing. He does great work as well. So yeah, that helps. And even, our whole team is what makes all this work. Even my wife now works for us. She does marketing and things like that, and just kind of takes her corporate background and helps us take this mom and pop shop and really organize it in a much more intelligent, strategic manner. And that's been unbelievably helpful. So just really, it's been a big team effort, and then just making sure that we continue to grow and to develop. I'm never satisfied. And our team is the same way. We're type A. I come from New York and Connecticut, so bring that mentality down here to South Florida, and my partner's from Philadelphia, so we're just always hungry for more, and we're extremely, extremely diligent. So,
well, look, man, awesome.
Yeah.
Tell everybody how they can find you on the World Wide Web.
Absolutely. So you can find us at Athletics Rehab on Instagram, on Facebook. Athletics is spelled with an X, ATHLETIX, Rehab. As well as myself, I'm at Dr._Reef, REEF on Instagram. You can find us there. And our website is athleticsrehab.com.
Athleticsrehab.com. Hold on.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Well, look, Dr. Reef, man, please come back anytime that you need to, anytime you want to promote something or talk about any issues out there. We are here for you. We'll give you the platform, and I really do appreciate your time. Guys, this is Dr. Sharif Tebab. He is the co-owner of Athletics Rehab and Recovery Center. If you guys know Alvin Kamara and his monster workouts, he is the man responsible for it. Thank you so much, Dr. Reef.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Hope to be back soon.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye. All right. Bob, man, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he is definitely impressive. And I love the fact that, he was able to open up, our viewers and our listeners' eyes as far as, not only Alvin Kamara, but a lot of these, professional level athletes, and what they have to do to not only get onto the field, but stay onto the field, of play, and, compete at such a high level. And, like he said, and multiple times, it's about finding new challenges, which is a philosophy all of us can certainly take in life. He deals with not only the physical aspect, but also the mental aspect of players too, which is something that a lot of people lose sight of. But yeah, definitely an impressive young man.
Right. Bob, when you were coaching track back in the day, you had your athletes and you were preparing them from time to time, and you guys had to go through rehab. And the rehab programs today, of course, are more advanced than in years past. Talk about that mental aspect again. And I think what you see from Alvin Kamara, especially, man, you can see the focus on his face and in his workouts as well. So talk a little bit about how important the mental aspect is.
And the mental part is every bit as important as the physical part. And not only experienced this as a coach, but also as a pro-am volleyball player myself, and numerous injuries over the years. The mental aspect is the most difficult hurdle to overcome, because the body, the human body will heal itself. You need some tweaks, some help with medicine, some help with training, et cetera. But when you approach, your recovery from an injury, you're so down in the dumps, and despite how much encouragement you're getting around you, that focus and that drive needs to come from within. When you start out, you obviously have to start out slowly. When you're coming back from an injury, otherwise, obviously, you'll re-aggravate it. But you're so used to, as an athlete at any level, you're so used to not taking it slow, and you have to differ your pace. So you really do need someone like Dr. REEF, who's going to keep you grounded, or a team of coaches or trainers around you that's going to keep you grounded and realize, okay, you're not going to be able to run or jump or cut at the level that you were pre-injury right away. But in a lot of aspects, if you come back slowly enough and you tackle all those mental, and it's more than just mental too. It becomes very emotional. It's one small hurdle at a time, and it is a progression. You're not going to snap your fingers and bob your head like a genie and be back to normal.
Yeah, coming back from injury takes some time for let's say, and I'm dealing with a lot more seniors these days in my family. Coming back from injury mentally takes a toll on them, I feel, more than the physical, So, all right, guys, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Saints, what's going on in the Who Dat Nation, what's going on in the world today as well as what's been on the mind of most New Orleans Saints fans, due to some reports that have been out there in the New Orleans Saints media side. One of our friends of the show, Nader Marif, who is a part of the WBOK radio network, and he reported earlier last week that the New Orleans Saints had interest in Jadeveon Clowney, right? So Clowney, if you don't know, is one of the premier free agents that is still on the market as a pass rusher for the NFL. And, he was one of the first guys that came to mind of a lot of people when we talk about the pass rush need for the New Orleans Saints. So, Bob, tell us a little bit about your thoughts. Do you think right now, can the Saints be able to bring in Clowney, especially since we're so limited in cap space? Now, let me preface this. Kai Harley and Mickey Loomis have done wonders when it comes to bringing people in. What are your thoughts about Clowney and being brought into the Who Dat Nation?
Well, first of all, about the reports, and like you, Kyle, or I know I speak for both of us, Kyle. We both respect, Nader Murphy, and he was the one that first started openly talking about, the Saints having heavy interest in Clowney, like you said. Now we've not heard any confirmation from the team or from Clowney's representatives, but the fact that he is still out there and he has turned down offers from Cleveland, that we know for sure, and we believe Tennessee as well. And negotiations have kind of stalled with the Seattle Seahawks, whom he played for last year. The fact that Clowney is still out there certainly makes this a possibility. If New Orleans and Clowney were to reach some sort of an agreement, you would certainly believe that it would be on a one-year deal where Jadeveon can hit the free agent market yet again. But as far as what he could bring to the Saints, like you said, Kyle, he is an outstanding pass rusher. Maybe not top 5 and elite edge rushers, but definitely in the top 10 conversation. Now, I know what a lot of people have said. The Saints already have Cameron Jordan and Marcus Davenport on the other side. But as our friend Mike Detillier always says, you can never have too many pass rushers and too many guys to get that quarterback onto the ground. And as SI.com mentioned in an article just a couple of days ago, we know that that's been one of the Saints' problems in the last 3 postseason failings. Was the fact that they were not able to get necessary pressure on the passer when the game was on the line. And a guy like Clowney can just make their edge rushers that much deeper. But he's been asking for a lot of money, up front. Jadeveon has, so I'm sure that he or the team, would have to come to some sort of understanding, even on a 1-year deal, because as magical as Mickey Loomis and his staff is at working that salary cap, it is still a cap, and they have to keep the other players around them too and continue to pay them. But I'm very interested to see what's going to happen and how this Jadeveon Clowney rumor is going to grow.
Yeah, well, and before I even talk a little bit more about that, number one, let's look at the possibilities of maneuvering the cap, right? If you bring in Clowney, he's asking for a long-term deal from some other clubs, but it's been mentioned that he really wants to be a part of a winning franchise and possibly get a Super Bowl ring, right? And I don't care what anybody tells me, the reason why we play NFL football is to become a Super Bowl championship. You got to have that championship ring behind you, or you feel kind of incomplete. And some guys may say, "Oh, I don't," but I think it would gnaw at you if you don't. A guy like Clowney, if he has an opportunity to get on with a Super Bowl winning team or a possible Super Bowl team like New Orleans, would only be to his advantage. And I think right now, when you look at what has happened in the past years due to injuries with Marcus Davenport, last season in that playoff game, we sorely missed Marcus Davenport. So can you have Marcus Davenport? Can you have Jordan? Can you have Trey Hendrickson, Marcus Hunt, and all those guys coexisting? Yes, in my opinion. I mean, especially if you're on the winning team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Winning cures all ills. And like you said, an athlete, especially at the professional level, but an athlete at any level, if your goal is to not win a championship, then frankly, I don't want you on my team. Right. So you would certainly hope that we could take Clowney at his word about when he says he wants to play for a contender and be in the championship conversation at the end of the year. But Clowney, these other guys that you mentioned, Kyle, Trey Hendrickson, Marcus Hunt, even Carl Granderson, they're more role players than anything else. Clowney, certainly Cam Jordan, and certainly Marcus Davenport, they're your bell cows, they're your starters. And Davenport has shown us that he, at least in his first 2 years, that he hasn't been able to hold up under the pounding of every single down. So I would certainly rather have a guy like Clowney at that other end spot opposite Jordan than I would, and this is no offense to Trey Hendrickson, Marcus Hunt, or anybody else, but Clowney is just heads and shoulders a better player than they are. Not only as a pass rusher, but he's underrated as a run defender too. So can these guys coexist? I absolutely agree with you that they can.
Yeah. Okay. And Scooby, it's Scooby-Doo 2. How you doing, man? Thank you for your comments. We missed some interior pressure without Rankins as well. The Rankins injury was one that really caused the Saints some issues, right? But the Saints were able to bring back David Amnimata. They were able to kind of solidify that interior. We had some trouble there, man. And, I just think, thinking about everything, you've got to be able to say, just like you mentioned earlier, it's never too good or too much to have good talent on board, right? So, and what's up, Nader? How you doing, buddy? He gives us a shout out. We gave you a shout out earlier for your report on Clowney. Good stuff, man. Keep it up. And Jason Williams. Okay. Now, Jason has a different thought process here. He say Clowney is overrated. He's not the player he should have been as a #1 draft pick. Okay. So, interesting comment, Jason. I'm going to let you take that one, Bob.
And I can see where a lot of people have felt that way. Even coming out of college, a lot of people were questioning Clowney's work ethic and desire, to be a consistently elite player. And in my opinion, Clowney really hasn't necessarily answered those questions. He's gotten a lot better, and I certainly wouldn't call him a bust as a #1 overall draft choice. But as we mentioned at the beginning of the segment, Clowney is not among your top 5 elite edge rushers. He's probably in the conversation once you get to 8, 9, 10, 10th best. But to pay him among the top 2 or 3 best edge rushers in the league, he doesn't necessarily, and I always hesitate to use this term, he doesn't necessarily deserve that. But some team will ultimately end up paying it. Clowney, again, you might believe that Clowney might be overrated as a #1 overall draft choice. He is still a massive upgrade over Trey Hendrickson, Margus Hunt, Mario Edwards Jr., and Carl Granderson. And again, an addition like Clowney would be able to give really, really talented depth to that Saints edge rush core, in addition to to Cam Jordan. And if Marcus Davenport gets dinged up again, well, you don't have the worries that you had over the last 2 years, because you have a Jadeveon Clowney that can step right in and give you high quality football.
Yeah. Look, I watched him here in Houston, right? And I'm not going to take anything away from Clowney. Clowney had a good support system on the other side. I think this guy is, what's his name? J.J. Watt? Pretty good. Really good guy, right? And having another good support on the other side, having Jordan, right? But also, guys, if you mix him in with Trey Hendrickson, Marcus Davenport, Mario Edwards Jr., I mean, why not? Why not try to say you have this talent? I like this word, plethora of talent. So why not try to take that and use them in a system? Now, one thing that I need to note, I don't know the other defensive coaches or defensive line coaches, but Ryan Nielsen is pretty good, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He can really do some wonders with a guy like Clowney. Brian Russell, I think in the right system, Clowney will be great. Just mentioned that, Brian, right? Especially with Jordan on the other side. Yeah, right. I mean, Brian, you were just reading my mind, man. Exactly. Nader says, how hard to double team Clowney and Cam Jordan?
Yeah, especially when you have guys like Rankins, Malcolm Brown, and David Onyemata coming at you from the inside. Good luck opposing offensive lines.
Right. You can never have not enough pressure in the National Football League, guys. And having a guy like Clowney just makes a lot of sense. Can we fit him in the price range is another I guess, issue for Mr. Loomis to be able to talk about and put in the mix. Plus, Clowney keeps Davenport fresh, right? And coming off of injuries. Exactly. Same thing, Nader. We believe the same thing, man. All right. I'm going to go back to what Jason here said. He talked about possibly bringing in another vet like cornerback. On yesterday, Bob, you wrote about some troubled areas that are still on the New Orleans Saints team. Cornerback is one of those areas that still troubles us because, in my opinion, I don't think we have enough veteran depth or let's say the veteran depth that we have is what, in your opinion?
I'm not allowed to use the word, so I will just say below average.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, listen, the article that you're referring to, I did highlight, three roster areas on the Saints that I find troublesome, not for the starting caliber talent, but for the depth behind them. Wide receiver, we've had this conversation, I don't even know how many times in the last 2 years, but wide receiver behind Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, it does concern me. But since we're talking defense this morning, edge rusher is another area that I pointed out. And I did point out that a guy like Jadeveon Clowney or Everson Griffin, who's still out there, or even a veteran guy like Clay Matthews, who can give you, some nice pass rush on limited snaps. I would like to see the Saints kind of boost their depth that way there. But cornerback, Logan Ryan, Dre Kirkpatrick, Darqueze Dennard, all former number one. Well, Kirkpatrick and Dennard are former number one draft choices, as well as Morris Claiborne. I would love to see and I've been crying and pounding the table for it all offseason long, that I wanted to see the Saints address the cornerback position, because frankly, the cornerback spot, it terrifies me behind Marshawn Lattimore and Janoris Jenkins. That depth terrifies me a lot more than the players behind Marcus Davenport or Cam Jordan. At least we know a Trey Hendrickson and a Mario Edwards or Carl Granderson, I think, is going to develop nicely this offseason. We know those guys can give you quality snaps. Who here really wants to see P.J. Williams or Patrick Robinson line up in a man coverage responsibility, especially with the game on the line? Well, you have to go back no further than the Minnesota Vikings playoff loss and the final two football games of that plays of that football game to see how that works out for you. Listen, we've had Dietrich Nichols on the show. We've had Keith Washington on the show, and they're both friends of ours, Kyle, or at least, I'd like to consider them friends of ours. And I like both players a lot. And I like Tino Ellis, the other undrafted rookie from Maryland. But you bring in a guy like Logan Ryan or Dre Kirkpatrick, where I do really like Darqueze Dennard. And I think that instantly upgrades your veteran cornerback depth, where you don't have to rely on these first-year unproven guys. You can bring them along a little bit more slowly.
Yeah. Kirkpatrick, Logan Ryan is out of the price range right now, Brian.
Yeah.
I just want to make that kind of, as well as Scooby-Doo too. Both Logan is out of the price range right now for what the Saints can be able to offer. He's looking for a long-term deal, probably 3-4 year type of deal with somebody. He could possibly look at a 2-year deal, but it's going to still be in probably $6 to $10 million per year type of range.
Yeah.
I don't think the Saints are able to come up with that. I think Dennard makes a lot of sense for the Saints. And like you said, former number one. Plus, think about this. We're going into, after this season, possibly looking at bringing Lattimore in for a longer term deal, right? If you have another young guy like Dennard in the mix in that cornerback core, it would make sense for the Saints for long-term purposes, right? And think about what Aaron Glenn can possibly do to help develop Dennard. Now, it's not a knock against the Bengals, right? But those guys suffered in their defensive back core, right? I don't know if it was through coaching or lack of coaching or whatever. All I know is I believe more in what Aaron Glenn can do for the New Orleans Saints and being able to develop talent than what another outside franchises, coaches, staff can do, right? So that's why I like him. Nader says that Logan is looking for around $10 million per year. That's about right, Nader, and I believe it as well. Brian, you referred to the San Francisco game too. Yeah, those are problems. There was some issues in the defensive backfield, but also that's one of the main reasons why Malcolm Jenkins has been brought into the mix as well, to coach that backfield, you know. So I think all in all, man, when you look at the situation with the Saints and the cornerbacks, I think that has to be one of the major areas that they can, you know, concern themselves with, especially if they can't bring in a guy like Clowney at this time. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, we know that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, is going to take on some slot responsibilities, and he was terrific in that role last year. Again, unless you're comfortable with PJ Williams or Patrick Robinson, covering a guy man to man, with the game on the line, I want the Saints to bring in one of these other cornerbacks that we mentioned. I didn't mention Logan Ryan in the article, and we only kind of glossed over him in our conversation today, exactly because of the reason that you and Nader just mentioned a moment ago, because of the salary and the longer term deal that Logan wants. I think that's why I think a guy like Denard or Dre Kirkpatrick is a little bit more realistic. But at the same time, you do have to get the opposing quarterback on the ground too. So a guy like Clowney or Everson Griffin would also make a lot of sense. And I've said this for weeks now. I don't think the Saints are done making moves this offseason. It would not. I half expect them to make another splash on the defensive side, which would be a guy like Denard or Clowney or Everson. They might have to juggle some more salaries to do it. But anybody that thinks that the Saints won't be able to accomplish that kind of thing, if they identify the player that they want for their system this year, we're not talking long-term deal either. We're talking all guns blazing for the championship this year. Don't think for 1 second that they won't have the wherewithal to pull that trigger.
Yeah, and it only makes sense to bring in I wouldn't say proven vet, but dynamic proven vet.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Somebody who has that athletic ability and raw talent that can be able to make a play here or there. You saw what Clowney did for Seattle in his time there, right? So I don't anticipate being a part of the New Orleans Saints any less than what you would see there. I think it would be more enhanced to be able to have a coach like Nielsen to be able to help him out. All right, guys, we got some more comments that just came in. Let's say Brian says Everson Griffin will make a lot of sense, right? Jason, no P-Rob. Okay, the P-Rob hate continues. Nader, defensive end, cornerback, left the field. Yes, we agree wholeheartedly, my friend. Let's see, Brian Russell. Yeah, and I got to be honest about this one thing. P-Rob was cold. He came into the game. Marshawn Lattimore was injured, right? Mm-hmm. He had to come into the game, and the Vikings did the smart move. Pick on the guy who's just coming in, who's not worked up a sweat, who is cold and at a critical time of the game. Now, what could have been done also in the safety aspect is for that safety to recognize who could be the weak link in this whole process. That's when Marcus Williams or Von Bell should have been the one communicating to P-Rob or being able to give some extra coverage to be able to support P-Rob in that instance. Okay? Yep. That's why Malcolm Jenkins will be more important for the New Orleans Saints in that type of capacity. Go ahead, Bob. You about to say something?
No, just to expound on your point, on that play, on the deep play in Robinson's coverage that set up the game-winning touchdown in overtime against the Vikings. Like you pointed out, and everybody that saw Robinson come into the game, you knew where the Vikings were going to go. And if you watch that play, that deep pass to Thielen, it was Marcus Williams that was the deep safety, and he was late getting over the top, which made it, frankly, an easy completion for Cousins. But to play devil's advocate to Marcus Williams and the other safeties that were on the field, your defensive backfield at that time at cornerback With Lattimore leaving the game, Eli Apple had already been placed on injured reserve at the weeks earlier, as we know. You had Lattimore on the sidelines, Janoris Jenkins on the field, who played outstanding that day, P.J. Williams, and Patrick Robinson. So who are you going to help out with over the top coverage there? The Saints, to Dennis Allen's credit, over the last couple of years, Dennis Allen does like to stay aggressive, in his front seven. So you do drop an extra safety into the box every now and then, and they had to most of that afternoon to contain Dalvin Cook, which means you only have a single safety over the top. Marcus Williams has to choose which of his two liabilities he's going to cover. He's going to help out over the top. Is it going to be Patrick Robinson or is it going to be P.J. Williams? Marcus Williams was a step slow in helping out over the top, yes, but Robinson, I agree with you, Kyle. He was coming into the game cold, but you're a professional and you're not a starter, and you knew you weren't going to be a starter. It's your job to stay ready.
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later, man. But yeah, that is a good point, man. Look. All right, so we talked about those guys. Jason, good point. If you have a great pass rush, you will help support your secondary. So good points, guys. Keep your comments coming. Really do appreciate it. All right, before we get off the air, Bob, a couple of items I wanted to talk about. Gosh, I had that paper. All right, anyway. Saints brought in James Hurst. And James Hurst is going to be, how do I say this? He's going to be one of the guys supporting that left tackle and left guard spot, right? New Orleans Saints, look at what's happening. How do I say this, man? Mike Detillier said something that really was key for us a couple of shows ago. Sean Payton loves versatility.
Yep.
Right? The reason why most of the guys have been signed, especially on the offensive as well as defensive line, has been a result of their ability to play multiple positions. James Hurst plays that left tackle and left guard position, right? He's been a starter with the Baltimore Ravens. He did lose his job, okay, but he has that flexibility. And we do know that Teron Armstead, as well as Andrus Peat, over the past several years, have been in and out of the lineup due to injury, correct?
Yep.
So having a guy like Hurst to come into the fold makes a lot of sense. So people were questioning why another offensive lineman, when we just signed Patrick Amame, we signed a couple other guys. We have right now 15 offensive linemen signed to the roster. 15. So what are your thoughts there, Bob?
I think it's a good move by the Saints. It's a smart move by the Saints. And it's just one more reason, to believe that, Calvin Throckmorton, Adrian McGee, Darren Paulo, and Jordan Steckler, the four rookie undrafted offensive linemen that they brought in. These guys are going to have a heck of a time making the football team. No disrespect to them. It's in large part due to the offseason, those players and those teams not having much of a chance to do anything onto the field before training camp gets started.
Right.
So these undrafted guys are going to be behind the eight ball even more so than what they normally would be. We have seen, the Saints offensive line struggle when Andrus Peat has gone down with injury, or more specifically when Teron Armstead has gone down with injury. Now, I love the fact that they re-signed Patrick Amame, and he played very well for Armstead at left tackle last year for I think 2 games that he had to fill in for him. But Hurst, like you said, he was a part of a Baltimore Ravens offensive line that is considered one of the better in the NFL. And even though he would ultimately lose his job to a higher draft pick, Hurst will still give you some quality football at both guard or tackle. So I mentioned the undrafted free agents. A guy like Will Clapp or Cameron Tom is also going to have a heck of a time making this team over a guy like Patrick or Hurst. Because Patrick or Hurst will give you the versatility that Cameron Tom and Will Clapp will not. Hurst is still, he's still a younger guy. I think he's 28 years old, maybe 29.
Right.
He's still good on his feet. An athletic guy, for being a bigger, for being one of the big uglies up front. He's quick on his feet, and he can, and has shown that he's been able to handle those pass rushers, that the AFC will bring in at you. So Hurst has to be among the favorites to grab one of those back half of the roster spots.
Well, not only that, when you talk about Tom, you talk about Clapp, those guys are more versatile guard center spot, right? Versus old tackle and old guard, right? So that's why I believe Hurst has a leg up on both of those guys as well. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Brian brought out a good question. What about McGee? I think you kind of addressed that about his chances making the team, maybe a little bit challenged. We don't know what's going to happen in training camp. Number one, once they finally get to training camp, unfortunately, injuries are part of this game, and it can happen in training camp as well. So hopefully our guys stay as healthy as possible, but you do have the chances and run the risk of having injuries. That may be one of the reasons why the New Orleans Saints have focused so heavily on what's going to happen with the offensive and defensive line in some of the guys, right? Yeah, and Jason, yes, you are correct. Hurst is suspended for the first 4 games of the season due to PED violation. Brian, I like Tom, but I think Clapp has disappointed. He has underwhelmed at times, but he did have a couple of good games, I remember, filling in due to injury, especially in the run aspect of the games. So, all right, we talked about that. All right, let's go back to this. Jason, we kind of talked a little bit about one of the reasons why Clowney makes sense. Because Noah Spence, guys, and I forgot to, and thank you for reminding me there, Jason. Noah Spence has been put on IR for the New Orleans Saints because he tore his ACL during workouts, right? So there we go. That's another reason why you get as many good quality players as possible, because you don't know what's going to happen to these players and their bodies coming back off an extended period of time. There's no training camps, no mini camps, no OTAs, no ability to go into rehab in the facilities right now. So you're going to have some guys who are going to be out of shape a little bit, so just keep that in mind, guys. All right, Bob, let's see. We talked about Hurst. We talked about Clowney, and let's talk about this. The rules have changed again for the NFL. Again, so they're not going to bring back the pass interference call. I think that was kind of a Band-Aid type of situation anyway, right? Let's appease the Saints fans or what have you. Yeah. They really didn't have any full intention to be able to do anything worthwhile with that. Plus, we saw during the season where some obvious pass interference calls, especially for the push-off Kyle Rudolph had against the Saints to win the playoff game, that was not even reviewed. Let's get that straight. The officials were jogging off the field, and they didn't even review that call. So I don't think that's going to be much of an issue, but there's a possibility of having a sky judge that will be tested during preseason. Any other significant NFL rules changes that you'd like to talk about, Bob?
Yeah, you're right. They tinkered around with the rule. The most significant one was the pass interference. Yeah, which I've rolled my eyes the whole time over that anyway. And I believe it was our John Hendricks that wrote about the rule changes earlier this week for for Saints News Network. I don't really see any of the other ones affecting the game in a positive or negative way, in a major way. I know that they're still kicking around the idea of a 4th and 15 situation rather than an onside kick. That never has seemed to gain a lot of traction. When the proposals have been brought up in recent years, and I certainly don't see it changing for the 2020 season. But I don't see that being implemented anytime soon.
Right. Well, the onside kick, I believe they said over 104 of the last attempts on onside kicks, especially to try to win a game, has never resulted in that team successfully winning the game anyway. So it does give you an opportunity, but it never really works. Brian Russell said, yeah, the PI only worked against us. Yeah, Brian, you're right about that. And Hurst was suspended. Does it count against our roster? There's a way to be able to exempt him from being a part of the roster or counting against the roster because of his suspension, Jason. Thelma O'Neill, how you doing, Thelma? Who that's big Mafia Soul. Okay. Those guys at Big Easy Mafia have been doing some pretty good stuff. If you've seen some of their masks, they are donating to worthy causes, like some people in the Who Dat Nation who need some extra masks. I know I forgot the gentleman's name who's over that group, but I have to applaud them for what they have been doing. Good job, guys. All right, Dan. Well, thank you for your comments. God bless to you guys as well. All right, guys. Kyle T. Mosley, I like to stay social, and I just have to say, I really want you guys to stay safe. Yeah, protest safely. We know everything that's been going on in the nation thus far, and what has precipitated as a result of George Floyd's passing. I just wish you guys just keep safe. Also, remember, we still have to stay safe because COVID-19 is not fully eradicated at this time, guys. All right. So just stay inside, keep peaceful, keep your tempers in check. Guys, we love you. We want to see you guys back around to be able to support the Saints here in 2020. But most of all, support your families and support everybody else, because you don't want to get caught off guard. I saw a young lady here in Houston who was just a mild protester, just standing there, Bob. Police officer on a horse just ran right over her. She had her back to the police officer, just ran over her. Didn't say he was sorry or anything. I'm not saying anything against police officers because I have some good friends who are, and I think that they need to be protected as well. But let's try to be peaceful in how we do our protests. All right, guys. Who Dat crew? Yeah. All right, we see you, Dada, and Who Dat Saints Beautiful Dome home. Oh yeah, and before I let you guys go, we still have some renovations that's going on inside of the Superdome. The next 4 years, they will be getting the Superdome ready for the Super Bowl and preparing for that Super Bowl in 4 years. So just keep that in mind. And there's going to be some good renovations that have been taking place. Bring Will in, man. Let's see Will.
Come here, Will. Come here.
What's up, Will?
It was funny when we were having Dr. REEF on. He was, he was jumping around in the background. He piled up. Will did. He piled up his books next to the TV, and he was jumping up and down off of off of them when you guys were posting the training videos for Kamara.
Really?
Yeah. So the old man Coach Rose might have a new young trainee that I might have to implement some of Dr. Reef's newer techniques, because I'm a little bit old school, as you know.
Yeah. Well, look, man, old school for some old bones here, man. It comes in handy. So, guys, if you guys didn't know, we had Dr. Reef, who is the trainer for our own Alvin Kamara. If you've seen these monster workouts, go ahead and relook at some of the video footage that we had with him earlier. We had a good conversation with Dr. Reef, man. He was an excellent host. All right, one last comment. Dada, school, what's good, bro? I came in a little late. Well, Dada, man, look, thank you for coming in at all. We really appreciate the support. Guys, don't forget, especially on YouTube, or if you're on Facebook or Twitter, like us, follow us at si.com/NFL/Saints is the website, but at Saints News is where you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Now, at Saints News Network is where you can find us on YouTube. Okay, so subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so we can bring you more of New Orleans Saints comments and content throughout the rest of the season. And Scooby-Doo too. All right, Saints News Network. Thank you. Yeah, and Kai Harley is his name. Yeah, he's done a tremendous job with the New Orleans Saints. And, he's the VP of football operations for the New Orleans Saints. He's a really smart brother. So just keep him in mind. Look, I'm surprised the Saints have been able to maintain him and retain him as long as they have been. He's a guy that I'm pretty sure other NFL organizations could be able to utilize his talent, Bob. Okay. Bob, tell everybody how they can follow you on the World Wide Web.
Well, the easiest way are the ways that you just mentioned, to everybody. Hunt down the Saints News Network and follow us there on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, as well as si.com. As far as me personally, I can be followed Bob Rose at Facebook and at Bobby R2613 on Twitter. I post all of our works and our shows on my personal page, as well as our Bayou Blitz Facebook page as well. So if you aren't a member of that, we stream our, if you can't get to YouTube, you can stream our shows through Facebook and the Bayou Blitz group that way. And we also post our articles in there as well, and open it up to all kinds of conversation, questions, comments, and criticisms from time to time. But yeah, definitely, we support, we love you for all the support that you have given us up to this point, and look forward to giving you some great work and entertaining work in the future.
Exactly. Good stuff, Bob. I guess I can say this too, Bob. Bob has a plethora of articles that are dropping today on the site. So guys, go and read Bob's articles. He's done a tremendous job for the Saints News Network. Thank you for being a part of us, man. If you guys don't know me, I'm Kyle T. Mosley of the Saints News Network. I'm here with Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz. Guys, you can follow us as well as Bob and I at si.com/NFL/Saints. And you can always go to our tag at Saints News on social media. All right, Bob, you guys have a great Sunday. Y'all stay safe. As I said, please stay safe. Stay out of harm's way, guys. Please, please, please. Look at me. You only have one you. Take care of that you. All right. Kyle T. Mosley of Saints News Network with Bob Rose of Bayou Blitz. Bob, have a good one. Take care.
You too, my friend.
Take care.